The evening was cold, the kind of autumn night where the air carried a bite sharp enough to make Emily pull her coat tighter around her shoulders. She held her son Noah's hand as they crossed the grocery store parking lot. Her life had become simple since the divorce, work during the day, dinners at home, and errands like this one. She avoided anything extra, anything unpredictable. She thought that keeping her world small meant keeping her heart safe. As she pushed the shopping cart toward her car, she noticed how quiet the parking lot felt. The streetlights flickered softly, and most shoppers had already left. She reached her car, popped open the trunk, and began loading the bags quickly, wanting to get Noah home. He was already yawning, his little face buried in the hood of his jacket. "Emily." The voice stopped her mid-motion. Her hand froze on a grocery bag. She turned slowly, almost afraid of what she would see. And there he was, Daniel Carter. It had been over a decade since she last saw him. Her college sweetheart. The man she once imagined walking down the aisle toward. The man she believed she would spend forever with. Time had changed both of them, but she recognized him instantly. His hair was shorter, darker at the roots, with a few streaks of gray, his jaw more defined, his shoulders broader. Yet his eyes, those steady, kind eyes, were the same. Her breath caught. "Daniel." Her voice was barely more than a whisper. He gave a small smile, one corner of his lips lifting as though he wasn't sure if he should be here, standing this close after so many years. "I thought that was you." "I wasn't sure at first." The parking lot lights threw a glow across his face, and Emily's mind spun back 2 nights long ago, when they used to walk across their college campus holding hands, making plans about the future. She hadn't expected to see him again, not after the way life had pulled them apart. She adjusted her coat and forced a polite smile. "It's been a long time." Daniel nodded. His gaze lingered on her in a way that felt familiar but also strange after so much distance. "It has. How have you been?" Emily wanted to keep her answers simple, safe. Busy, working, taking care of things. She glanced down at Noah, who was half hiding behind her leg, peeking at the tall stranger. "This is my son, Noah." Daniel's expression softened immediately. He crouched slightly, his voice lowering into a gentle tone. "Hey there, Noah. Nice to meet you." Noah stared for a second before offering a small, shy smile, the kind he rarely gave to people he didn't know. Something stirred inside Emily at that sight. She hadn't seen Daniel in years, yet here he was speaking kindly to her son as if it came naturally. She quickly brushed the thought away, reminding herself that this was just coincidence, just a chance meeting in a parking lot. Nothing more, but Daniel wasn't rushing off. He stood there, looking at her the way he used to when they were younger, as if he was searching for something familiar in her face. "You look good, Emily. Different, but good." Her heart raced, though she tried not to show it. "Thanks. You too." "What brings you back here? I thought you moved out west." "I did," he said. "Seattle. Work kept me busy for a long time, but I'm back now. Needed a change, needed to be closer to family again." Emily nodded, unsure what to say. The memories were swirling too quickly. Their breakup had been sudden, driven not by lack of love, but by choices, timing, and distance. He had taken a job, offer that carried him across the country, and she had stayed behind, finishing school, then building a life. She had convinced herself they belonged to 2 different worlds. Now, looking at him, she wasn't so sure. Noah tugged at her hand impatiently. "Mom, can we go home?" His voice was soft but insistent, reminding Emily of the present moment, grounding her. "Yes, sweetheart, we're almost done," she replied gently, then turned back to Daniel. "It was nice seeing you, really." For a moment, she thought she saw something in his eyes, hesitation, as though he wanted to ask her something more, to keep her there a little longer. But he only nodded, his smile calm. "Yeah, nice seeing you too, Emily." She closed the trunk, her hands slightly shaky. She guided Noah into the car, buckled him in, and slid into the driver's seat. She started the engine quickly, her chest tight, her mind racing. As she pulled out of the parking lot, she couldn't resist glancing in the rearview mirror. Daniel was still standing there with his cart, his gaze fixed on her car as it rolled away into the night. The drive home felt longer than usual. Noah leaned against his seat, half asleep, while Emily kept her eyes on the road, but her thoughts refused to stay still. She thought of Daniel's voice, the way he had said her name like it still meant something. She thought of the way his eyes softened when he spoke to Noah, as if he had stepped into her world without hesitation by the time she parked in front of their small house. She told herself it was just a coincidence, just two old friends bumping into each other by chance, nothing more. She repeated the words in her mind, trying to make them true. But deep down, she knew. The look in Daniel's eyes, the way her own heart had reacted, it wasn't nothing. It was something she hadn't felt in years as she tucked Noah into bed that night. Smoothing the blanket over his shoulders, she caught herself staring at his small, peaceful face. She thought about what life meant now, about the choices she had made, about the years that had passed since Daniel was part of her story. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "What are you doing here, Daniel?" The house was quiet, but inside Emily, old emotions had woken up, emotions she thought were gone forever. The parking lot encounter wasn't just a chance meeting. It was the start of something she couldn't name yet. But it had already changed the way she felt. The week after that chance meeting in the parking lot felt strangely heavy for Emily. She tried to bury herself in her work at the library, telling herself she wouldn't think about Daniel. But the truth was, she couldn't stop. Every time she stacked books on the shelves or checked out a novel for a patron, she caught herself remembering his voice, the way he said her name, the warmth in his eyes dotted home. Noah filled her evenings with questions about school projects, laughter during dinner, and bedtime stories. But even in those sweet moments, her mind would drift. She hadn't thought of Daniel in years. She had trained herself not to. Now, just one unexpected encounter had torn open a box of memories she wasn't ready for. She remembered the way he used to wait outside her college classes with 2 cups of coffee, one exactly how she liked it. She remembered sitting on the library steps with him, whispering about their dreams, her wanting to become a teacher, him wanting to see the world. And she remembered the day it all ended, his job offer in Seattle, his need to go, and her decision to stay. It hadn't been cruel, just life pulling them apart. Still, it had left a wound that never fully healed. On Thursday evening, Emily and Noah headed back to the grocery store. They needed a few things for the weekend, and she wanted to get in and out quickly. As they walked down the aisles, Emily felt her heart pound with nerves she couldn't explain. She told herself Daniel wouldn't be here. It had just been coincidence last time. But as she turned into the frozen foods section, there he was. Daniel, reaching for a bag of peas, his cart half full, wearing a navy jacket that made his broad frame stand out even more. Their eyes met. For a second, it was like the world paused. "Emily," he said, smiling, as though he had been waiting. She froze, her hand on the cart handle. "Daniel, twice in 1 week? That's something." "Maybe more than coincidence," he replied softly. "Hey." His eyes searched hers, not with pressure, but with quiet sincerity. Noah tugged at her sleeve, whispering, "Mom, that's your friend again." Emily gave a small, awkward laugh. "Yes, that's my friend." She looked at Daniel, who smiled warmly at Noah. "I didn't expect to see you again so soon." Emily admitted, her voice low. "Neither did I," Daniel said, "but I'm glad I did." They ended up walking down the aisle together, their carts side by side. The conversation started simple, polite. He asked about her job, and she explained how much she enjoyed working at the library, even though it wasn't always easy balancing her schedule with being a mom. She asked about his life in Seattle, and he told her about long hours, empty apartments, and how success never filled the loneliness. As he spoke, Emily realized he wasn't the same carefree young man she once knew. He had grown just like she had. But the way he looked at her, the steadiness, The care hadn't changed at all, Noah. Curious, kept glancing at Daniel, as though trying to figure out who this man was and why his mom seemed different. When she talked to him, they reached the checkout together. Emily hesitated, torn between wanting to escape quickly and wanting to hold on to the moment a little longer. Daniel glanced at her, almost as though he could read her thoughts. "Emily," he said gently, "maybe we could catch up properly sometime. Coffee. Nothing complicated, just catching up." Her heart stumbled. She wanted to say no to protect herself, to keep her world neat and small. She didn't have space for surprises, not when she had Noah to think about. But before she could answer, Noah tugged her sleeve again. "Mom," he said, his little voice clear, "he seems nice." Emily blinked, caught off guard. Daniel smiled kindly, but he didn't say a word. She looked down at Noah, then back at Daniel. "I'll think about it," she finally said, keeping her voice steady. Daniel nodded, his eyes calm, almost grateful. "That's all I ask." They left the store, but Emily's hands trembled as she pushed the cart to her car. Her chest felt tight, her thoughts tangled. Noah skipped lightly beside her, unaware of the storm inside her heart. That night, after Noah was asleep, Emily sat by the kitchen window, staring out at the quiet street. She thought of Daniel's voice, his smile, the way he had looked at her like no time had passed. She thought of Noah's innocent words, "He seems nice." Emily knew she was standing at the edge of something she couldn't quite name. Old memories were stirring, and with them, feelings she had locked away for years. She didn't know if she was ready to face them. But she also couldn't deny the truth. Her heart wasn't as closed as she thought. Saturday came with gray skies and a steady drizzle. Emily didn't plan to run errands that evening. But Noah had insisted they stop by the store for snacks before their weekend movie night. She almost said no, but his pleading smile won her over. She wrapped him in his little raincoat, grabbed her own umbrella, and drove through the damp streets toward the grocery store once again. As they pulled into the parking lot, Emily felt her chest tighten with an odd kind of anticipation. She told herself it was silly. Daniel wouldn't be here. She had already seen him twice in 1 week, and lightning didn't strike 3 times in the same place. Still, her heart beat faster as she guided Noah inside. The store was quiet, the aisles nearly empty. Emily moved quickly, picking up chips and juice boxes. She just wanted to be in and out. But fate had other plans. Halfway down the coffee aisle, she froze. There he was, Daniel, holding a bag of ground coffee, scanning the label, looking both casual and striking at the same time. He looked up, their eyes meeting instantly. His smile came without hesitation, warm and steady. "Emily." She swallowed, gripping her cart handle. "Daniel." Again. He chuckled softly. "Maybe it's not coincidence anymore." Her lips curved in a nervous smile. Or maybe this town is just too small. Noah peeked around the cart and waved. Daniel crouched slightly to his level, his voice gentle. "Hey, buddy. Movie night." Noah grinned. "Yeah, Mom said I could pick the snacks." Emily felt her heart twist. Daniel wasn't just polite, he was genuine. He spoke to Noah as though he mattered, not just as a child, but as someone worth listening to. That kind of warmth wasn't something you could fake. They continued shopping side by side, their carts bumping gently as they moved down the aisles. Conversation flowed more easily this time. They laughed about how the store always rearranged things, shared small details about their week, and even reminisced briefly about the college library where they used to study late into the night. For Emily, was both comforting and dangerous. Comforting because it felt natural, almost too natural, like slipping into an old rhythm she thought she had lost. Dangerous because her heart was waking up in ways she wasn't sure she could handle. At checkout, Daniel paused. His hand rested on the cart as he looked at her. "Emily, I'd really like to catch up. Maybe just a coffee, nothing complicated. No expectations." Her breath caught. She opened her mouth, searching for the right words. She wanted to say no, to remind herself of all the reasons she kept her world small, how she had learned to live without surprises. But before she could speak, Noah tugged her sleeve and leaned close. He whispered softly, but his words carried more weight than he could ever understand. "Mom, I like him." Emily froze. Time seemed to stop in that moment. She looked down at her son, his innocent face glowing with honesty. Noah was not the kind of child to warm up quickly to strangers. He had been cautious ever since the divorce, protective of their little world. For him to whisper those words, it meant something. Her chest tightened, her eyes stung. She blinked quickly, trying to hide her reaction. She looked up at Daniel, who hadn't heard the whisper, but who stood patiently, his gaze kind and steady. Emily's thoughts raced. Noah's words weren't just about liking someone. They were about trust, about instinct. Children didn't complicate things the way adults did. They saw what was in front of them, and Noah had seen something she herself was afraid to admit. Her heart thudded. She hadn't let anyone close in years, not even a little. But now, with her son's quiet approval, a door inside her opened. She managed a smile, though her voice trembled slightly. "Coffee, maybe that could be nice." Daniel's face softened with relief, his smile slow and genuine. "Good, I'd like that." They walked out together, rain pattering softly on the pavement. Daniel helped load her groceries into the trunk, his movements easy, natural, as though he had always been part of their world. Noah climbed into the back seat, humming happily to himself. And Emily watched Daniel close the trunk gently, his eyes meeting hers once more. For a brief moment, standing under the dim parking lot lights, she let herself imagine. She imagined what it would feel like to have someone by her side again, to share laughter and comfort. To not always carry the weight alone, but then fear crept in. She reminded herself of the hurt of the way her first marriage had ended, of the walls she had built for protection. Yet Noah's whisper echoed louder than her fear. "I like him." Driving home, the car was quiet except for the sound of rain. Noah leaned against the window, smiling sleepily. Emily gripped the steering wheel, her mind a storm of hope and hesitation. She didn't know what coffee with Daniel would mean, or whether it would lead anywhere at all. But she knew one thing for certain. Her son's simple words had shifted something deep inside her. That night, after Noah was tucked into bed, Emily sat at the kitchen table, staring at her untouched cup of tea. She could still hear her son's whisper as clearly as if he had just said it. It wasn't just about liking Daniel. It was about giving her permission. Permission to hope again. Permission to believe that maybe her story wasn't finished, that maybe, just maybe, love could find her a second time. She pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her heartbeat racing beneath her palm. For the first time in years, she let herself breathe a little deeper, as if the walls she had built weren't so solid anymore. And in that quiet, she whispered back to herself, almost as if answering her son, "I think I like him too." The following week passed in a blur for Emily. At work in the library, she tried to stay focused, arranging shelves, answering questions, and stamping return dates on books. But no matter what she did, her mind kept drifting back to that rainy night in the parking lot. Daniel's smile, his gentle voice, the way he had looked at her with patience, not pushing, only waiting. And most of all, Noah's whisper, "Mom, I like him." Those words had carved themselves into her heart. Impossible to ignore. For years she had convinced herself she was fine alone. She told herself she didn't need anyone. That stability was safer than longing. Yet now she found herself lingering by the phone after Noah went to bed, half hoping, half dreading that Daniel might call. On Thursday evening, her phone buzzed with a message. Her breath caught when she saw his name. "Coffee this weekend." No pressure. Just catching up. She stared at the screen for a long time. Her heart raced as she typed and erased 3 different replies. Finally, she sent a simple one. "Yes, Saturday works, that night." She lay awake longer than she should, her thoughts restless. She worried about opening her heart again, about what might happen if she let Daniel close. But she also felt something she hadn't in years: hope. When Saturday came, she dressed with more care than usual. A soft sweater, her favorite jeans, a touch of mascara. Not too much, but enough to feel like herself again. Not just the version of herself who worked and parented and kept the world together. Noah watched her curiously. "You look nice, Mom." Emily smiled and kissed the top of his head. "Thanks, sweetheart. I'm just meeting a friend for coffee." He grinned knowingly. "The one I like." Her cheeks warmed. She nodded. "Yes, the one you like." Daniel arrived at the cafe before she did. She spotted him through the window, sitting at a corner table with 2 mugs already waiting. He looked up as she entered, his smile calm, almost reassuring, as though he sensed her nervousness and wanted to ease it. "Emily," he said warmly, standing as she reached the table. "Daniel." Her voice was softer than she meant it to be. She sat down, her hands curling around the warm mug. For the first few minutes, he spoke carefully, filling the silence with safe topics: his work, her job at the library, Noah's love for dinosaurs. But soon the walls began to fall away. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes steady. "I thought about reaching out before, more than once, but I didn't know if you'd even want to hear from me." Emily looked down at her coffee, her fingers trembling slightly. "I told myself I'd moved on, that the past was the past. But seeing you again, it shook me more than I expected." He nodded slowly. "I know I left, and I know it hurt. I thought chasing a career was the right thing. But all the years away, all the things I achieved, none of it felt complete. Not without." He trailed off, his gaze searching hers. She swallowed hard, her voice almost breaking. "Not without what?" His eyes softened. "Not without you." The words pierced her, tender and heavy at the same time. She blinked quickly, fighting the tears that threatened. She wanted to believe him, but fear clung to her. "I don't know if I can go through losing someone again. I have Noah to think about. I can't let him get attached and then watch it fall apart." Daniel reached across the table, not grabbing, resting his hand close enough for her to see the quiet promise in the gesture. "Emily, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because I want a second chance. With you. With whatever comes with you. I know that means Noah, too. I don't take that lightly." Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of possibility of choice, of something new waiting to begin. Finally, Emily exhaled, the tension easing from her shoulders. She gave a small, tentative smile. Maybe we can take it slow." His smile mirrored hers, gentle and steady. Slow is perfect. Over the next hour, they talked about everything and nothing. Old memories, new stories, small dreams, and quiet laughter. It felt both strange and familiar, like rediscovering a song she used to love but hadn't heard in years. When they finally left the cafe, the afternoon sun was breaking through the clouds. Daniel walked her to her car, and for a moment, neither of them wanted to say goodbye. "Emily," he said softly, "I don't know where this will lead, but I know I don't want to waste another chance." She looked at him, really looked at him, and realized her heart wasn't as afraid as it had been. Noah's whisper had cracked open a door she thought was sealed forever, and now she was ready to see what might be waiting on the other side. That evening, back home, Noah was waiting with eager eyes. "How was it?" he asked. Emily smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It was good. Really good." Noah grinned, satisfied. "I told you I like him." Emily laughed softly, pulling him into a hug. "Yes, you did. And maybe you were right." That night, after Noah was asleep, Emily stood by the window, the cool air drifting in through the glass. She thought about the way Daniel had looked at her, the way he had spoken not just to her, but about Noah, about their future. She knew nothing was guaranteed, but for the first time in years, she felt like tomorrow wasn't just another routine, it was a door that had opened in the middle of a parking lot, with a whisper from her son guiding her through. And as she whispered into the quiet night, her voice steady and full of something she hadn't dared feel in years, she said, "Maybe this is the beginning of something beautiful."